So now that we have the coolant fully drained, we're going to come right up here, grab onto this. Just want to lift right up. We're going to start removing this intake area. So the next thing we're going to do, grab onto this, and if you follow this end down, you can slide that right off of there. Let's remove this air inlet. You can use an 8mm or a flathead. Just loosen up the clamp right there. Remove that. We're going to continue on to getting off some of this wiring and this hose up here. Just pull that straight up, set it aside. You don't want to forget it. Grab a small pocket screwdriver to continue. We're just going to push in on the tab and then draw it off. Some of these have a little red tab, I'll show you it, and that's actually a lock. If you look right here, that was pressed. I just kind of popped it up and it unlocks it. Start drawing that away. These are just little clips that hold onto the plastic. Got this one, little red lock on it. There it is. These right here are just little push tabs. You can try to use something as simple as a forky tool and try to pry it out of there, which is what I'm going to do. I want to be careful not to break the plastic on the intake, of course. Just going to see about giving it a little push. Awesome. Okay, so I can see there's a mounting nut for a bracket that's right back here along the intake. We're going to need to make sure we get that off as well. But let's continue on checking for hoses first. There's this hose that goes to the brake booster right along the backside. That's where the brake booster gets vacuum from the engine. We need to get that off of there. Now we don't want to forget about this bracket back here, but first we're going to come along here to the front. Get this. You can either disconnect it right here or just pop it up and out of there. I have the forky tool out, so I can see up along the front. There's another mounting nut there and another mounting nut up here that hold the intake down. So we're going to pay attention to those. As far as I can tell, everything that needs to be disconnected should be disconnected. So let's start taking off the mounting hardware. You've got your two front nuts, one right there, one located right there, 10mm. Get them both off of there. There's the two fronts. Now that we have the top nuts loose on there or taken off, I'm just going to get this wire off of there. Should want to pop out. Do the same over here. There it is. So I can pull the wire away from the brackets. That looks pretty great. Now we're going to remove the nuts that hold the bottom portion of the bracket. If you look down along in between these brackets, you're going to see this aluminum looking tube. That's actually a coolant tube, and it's mounted to this bracket. So I'm going to use a 13mm ratchet wrench. I'm going to come down through here and get right on this mounting nut. Okay? And that's holding, like I said, this tube to the metal bracket. There's the nut. We'll set that aside so we don't lose it. Should be able to grab this tube, move it around. Awesome. At that point, now I can see over here, I can see that 13mm nut. We can get that one off as well. Let's see if I can move this far enough to get it off of there. Is it right there? Okay, so that's off a pretty decent amount. We just need it to be far enough to get our 13mm wrench on there to get the nut off. This looks like it's turning the whole stud, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. There we go, get that one out of there. There's the bracket, our bolt. Now we're just going to do the same to the other side. It might be better to do this one from underneath. Now that we have the two nuts off on the top, we're just going to follow this down. We're going to be removing the bracket, so of course I'm going to get the wiring off of there, but I wanted to point out where the other bolts are. It's going to be one, let's see if I can get this stuff moved. Okay, right down here, okay. So next I'm going to come along the top here. You have a little push pin. It's a little hard to get to with some cutters or anything like that, or even a tool that you'd normally pull them out with. So I went ahead and grabbed some that look like this. Just going to grab onto that center, just like that. Lift up on the center, it should draw it right out. Set that up there. At this point, we can give this a little wiggle. It's starting to feel pretty good. Just kind of lift up, push back. Here it comes. There we are. So next, let's start taking out all these mounting bolts using an 8mm. You want to do that starting on one side and working your way over to the other. Before we go too much further, we want to make sure we have something to cover up this engine, and I'll show you why. Let's carefully lift up on this. Okay, still got a bolt that's a little bit in there. There we go. So now that we have that upper portion of the intake off, it's important to remember that the engine's wide open at this point. If you were to drop anything inside these holes, something as small as maybe a bolt or a nut, or even just a small piece of debris that you happen to knock off into there, it's going to cause an issue inside of your engine. So let's move along. I'm going to carefully lift this up, get this out of the way. Now that we have the upper intake off, we're going to start removing these clips that go into the fuel injectors. You lift up on the red tab. Once you do that, you can press on the black and then draw these right off. Take a peek at the connector, looks great. Move along, do the same to all 6. So now it's time to remove the mounting bolts for the lower intake. And what I mean by that is all these bolts that run along there. Start on an outside or on a corner. So now when we lift this up, it's important to remember that we have these holes up here, but we're also going to have holes that are underneath there that actually go into the engine a little deeper down. So as we lift this up, if there's any crud that might be laying on top of the engine or around the edges there, there's a potential that it could fall into the engine. So just pay attention for that, and if it does, we'll just make sure we clean it out the best we can. Get this. Going to pull this up out of the way a little bit, just like that. If you wanted to, you could of course remove this fully from the vehicle. I didn't want to disconnect the fuel line. You can if you want. It might just make a little bit more of a mess. So if you look all along here, you can see where the gasket's supposed to ride. There's a lot of crud. We're going to need to make sure we clean that up, and when we do, be careful not to force it down into where the valves are. That would become a major issue. I'm going to grab a vacuum, a razor blade, maybe a scraper, and some nice clean rags. So now that we got this all nice and cleaned up, we want to be very careful not to drop anything in the engine once again. But to continue on, I'm going to lift up on this red tab right here, and then I'm going to press in right there and draw this up. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Just press in on that tab. Draw that off of there. And grab this tool. See if I can grab this clamp. If for some reason we can't, that's all right. We can get it once we get this off. It's close. They don't give you very much room in there. I know that I'm coming at it from the side, but that's what I have to do here. Okay. All right, so as you can tell, it really didn't want to come off that way. So now let's remove these mounting bolts. To do that, we're going to use an inverted torque socket. Just going to wiggle this around. There it is. Okay, lift straight up on this. Now, of course, it's time to get this hose off of there. It's definitely coming off. There we are. Carefully lift this up and out of here. So we've got our new engine oil cooler here with the oil filter assembly. If you look underneath, you're going to see you have all these nice new gaskets. So this has new gaskets. We need to check everywhere where that's going to sit to make sure that there isn't any gaskets from the old one sitting on here. Oh, nice. There's one. That would have been a big issue. So now that we know those are off of there, I'm just going to clean up these areas where the gaskets are supposed to ride, make sure they're nice and clean. I'll try to get some of that oil out of there the best I can, of course, and then we'll start the install. So I got the majority of that oil out of there now. I'm just going to go around one more time just to make sure that I get all these areas where the seals are going to ride and make sure that they're super clean. There's definitely no raised edges or areas that might cause an issue with the seals, because if you have an issue down here, you're going to have to take this all back apart again and resurface. I'm going to grab that new cooler. Let's go ahead and get this on there. I'm going to slide the hose on first. See if I can get it on as far as possible. There it is. Get that clamp to release. Yeah, the hose is definitely on there all the way. That looks great. Just want to double check to make sure all your seals are definitely in there. And then I'm just going to get a little bit of silicone paste. I just went with a tiny bit of silicone paste right on my finger. I'm going to go right along those seals, just where they made onto that metal of the engine. You could also use a little bit of motor oil if you want, or if you're really daring, you could use nothing at all. I'll say it's your prerogative. Carefully put this down on here. Make sure everything's sitting down where it belongs. Perfect. Now I'm going to start in all these bolts before I tighten any of them down completely. Okay, so now using our inverted torque socket, we're going to go ahead and snug these up. I'm just going to bottom them out, going in a specific order. Once everything's bottomed out, we'll go ahead and torque them to manufacturer's specifications. The first one we're going to tighten down is right over here. Number 2, all the way over in this corner. 3 is over here. 4 is in this corner. And number 5, right there. So now that we have all these snugged up, let's torque these to 106 inch-pounds in the same order that we just tightened them down in. All those are torqued. Let's move along. So now it's going to be time to get the gaskets off of this, but before I do that, I'm just going to put this down to cover all the holes that lead down into the engine. At this point, we're going to continue on by removing the gaskets on this side of the intake and also the gaskets on this side of the intake. Once we've done that, we're going to try to just clean this out a little bit as much as we can, make sure there's no raised areas, reinstall new gaskets on all these ports, and then we'll continue with the install. So let's start here. This old gasket looks like it's still good. It's not dry and brittle. I like to replace them anyways. Got a brand new one here. Slide it right in there. We're going to continue on to all the rest. Nice. All right, let's do the other side. It's not horrible. I'm just going to clean this up with a rag. Get all along here where the gasket's going to ride. Grab our new gasket. Slide it right in there, just like that. Now we're going to do the same right down the line. Look at that. Just from turning over the intake, look at how much crud would have just fallen into the engine. Get all those gaskets on there. Get as much sand out of this thing as possible. Carefully lift this up and out of here. Just like that. You can see how much crud's in there. To continue on with crud patrol, I'm just going to use this and just kind of put a little bit of air inside these cylinders. I just want to see if any large chunks of anything come flying out. Nope. Let's wipe down these mating areas where those gaskets are going to ride. Make sure they're nice and clean. We want to double check to make sure there's no raised areas anywhere. This is very important. This feels really good. Super smooth, nice and clean. All right, let's grab that intake one more time. I'm just going to use a little bit of lubricant. It's good to use a little bit of oil, especially if you have some new oil laying around. Just spread it around on these gaskets. Yep, and this is also a perfect time to make sure you're pressing down on those gaskets, so they're definitely going to be ready to go. Let's get this down. Pay special attention to if any gasket falls out while you're doing this. This is looking great. Yeah, nice. The fuel injector plugs out of there. It's gonna set right down. Oh yeah, this is perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna start in all the bolts, give them all a couple threads before I tighten anything down. Awesome. Okay, now let's bottom out the bolts. We're gonna do it in the specific order, so pay attention. Now it's time to bottom these out. I'm just gonna do it very lightly, but I'm gonna do it in a specific order. Number 1, over here in this corner. Number 2. Number 3 is right here. 4. 5. 6 is right here. Number 7. Number 8, located right there. Awesome. Let's torque it down. So now it's time to torque these. We're going to do it in the same order, starting with number 1 over here. Using our 8mm, torque them to 106 inch-pounds. Those are all torqued. Let's move along. Next, we're going to move along to connecting in these fuel injectors. Just grab the connector. You're going to press it right down on there. Press down on the red so it's locked in and give it a tug. Do the same to all 6. Continuing on, I've got my oiled finger here. I'm just going to go over these gaskets. Of course, I'm using fresh oil. Super important. Let's grab this little foam insert. Just put it here. It's kind of like an insulation barrier. Got our upper intake. Make sure you clean up all these ported areas. If there's any raised areas that you feel might be a problem, you could take a nice smooth razor blade and just kind of smoothen them down. But there really shouldn't be any issue areas where this is just plastic. That's nice. Carefully put this up and over here. I'm gonna bring it down, and I'm just gonna try to line up those spots. It's approximate. Come a little further. Looks like right about there. Wiggle it so the bolts drop down. That means they're into their spots. Awesome. Now it's time to snug up these bolts. We're going to do it very lightly because we're going to be screwing these into plastic. And the torque specification for them, believe it or not, is actually very low. We'll get to that in a minute. Start right over here with number 1. Number 2, you're going to come all the way over here. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. And number 7. Now it's time to torque these down. We're going to torque them to 89 inch-pounds. Let's install that driver's side bracket. Comes right along here. It's going to go over that stud and that stud. And then once you have it over, just grab that bolt. I'm going to start it in, and then I'm going to start those other 2 nuts, and then we'll snug them down. Awesome. Grab your 13 and tighten this up. Okay, it's bottomed out. Teeny bit more. Feels great. Make sure you put the wiring harness back on here so it's nice and secure. We've got this one, slides in there. Don't forget your 10mm nuts. We're going to snug those up as well. Okay, it's bottomed out, just a teeny bit more. Obviously, I don't want to break the plastic intake. Okay, it's bottomed out, teeny bit more. Got our wiring here. This goes in there. You got the small connector out of all these. Here we go, right in here. Okay, push in that lock tab, give it a nice tug. Don't forget to put this on here. That's what holds it. Very nice. We've got this rubber hose. It goes right on the back side here. You can feel a little piton come out of there. Go ahead and put that on. If you forget that, you're not going to have vacuum going to the brake booster, so your brake pedal is going to feel very tight. I'm going to grab this one. Let's see, that has to come around through here, so I'm just going to get this out of the way again. There it is. Click that in, and then of course just put this back inside there. Okay, this is all nice and secure. We're doing all right. We've got this one. You need that as well. That's vacuum as well. All right, we're gonna leave this just like that. At this point, we're gonna grab our air intake. We've got this right here. That's the air temp sensor. We're gonna come right under here. Just try to sneak it in. And then if you look down along the engine and the bottom of the intake, you can see those little pitons. They need to go into those little rubber grommets. At the same time as that's happening, we need to be bringing this part down onto this part of the intake. So there's multiple things that have to happen all at the same time. You have to press and twist, and it should want to pop right in there. Oh, yeah, nice. We have our push clip. When we push this in, grab from here. Once it's all the way bottomed out, push in the center. Just like that. Perfect. All right, let's continue on with this wiring. I'm going to connect this one in. Air temp sensor. Give it a tug. Now make sure you anchor it down. Super important to make sure nothing's flopping around as much as possible. Let's get this back on here. You can either snug this up with an 8mm or a flathead screwdriver. So now we have this hole right up here. We need to make sure that we close that up using this tube. Go ahead and insert that on this end. Comes right across the top, and then it's going to plug in right here. Squeeze it right in there. This should sit right along the top. Everything looks great. Let's move along towards the front of the engine. Now it's time to get the bracket in. Start with the passenger side because the driver's side has an extra bracket that's going to hold a coolant tube, and that's going to be in the way. I'm going to start right up here. We have our little stud. Put my bracket down and through. Okay. I'm going to start this nut on here. Now I'm going to go underneath, and I'm going to start in the other one. While I'm down there, I'll just go ahead and snug it up, and then I'll do the top portion again later. I'm going to go ahead and snug that right up. Make sure that this is nice and tight. Nice. Snug up that top nut. Now this is mounted only into plastic, so you only need to bottom it out and give it a teeny bit more. And that's perfect. Let's do the same to the other bracket. So we're going to do the bracket that's on the driver's side now. I've got my bolt going through like this. You've got the washer side going right up against the bracket. This is going to go into the engine. This portion right here is going to sit right on this stud that's located right underneath the intake. And in between, we have that cooler line. That's very important to remember. It has to go in between the engine and the cooler line. Get it spun around here. Oh, I went the wrong way. That's good. All right, so I've got the upper portion of the bracket up on there. I'll see if I can get a nut on before it falls off. Awesome. Okay, so now is going to be the tricky part. I need to get that bolt in through the bracket and then into the engine and tightened, and then I need to put that bracket that's part of the coolant line over it and then put a nut on top of that. The problem is the bracket that holds the coolant line onto here is pretty much hanging out right over this. So to get it in and in between there is just going to be a tight squeeze. I'll try to wiggle it around, see what I can do to get the most space. All right, I'm just going to snug this right up. Nice. Let's get that top nut. Okay, it's bottomed out. Teeny bit more. So now we need to get the bracket for the coolant line over that bolt that we just put on the intake or onto the engine. Come on. There it is. Grab that 13mm nut and go ahead and put that on. All right, so it just bottomed out right there. Just gonna give it that teeny bit more. Perfect. Let's just get this down so we can re-put it in there. That feels great. Double check everything. Just go around, make sure everything's definitely connected in. We didn't forget anything. This looks good. Let's continue. Let's make sure that the petcock's nice and closed. Perfect. Of course, we're gonna clean up our mess when we're done. The next thing I wanna do is test the pressure of the cooling system make sure that it holds vacuum. So I'm just going to use this kit right here, and what it's going to do is it's going to force air through here, rush it right by, create vacuum inside the cooling system. You're going to see the hoses start to crush down or collapse, and we're going to watch this needle go all the way up into the green. It has to go past the 25. Anywhere in between the 25 and 30 is great, and then it has to stop. Once it stops, I'm going to close off the vacuum, turn off the air, and we're going to make sure that that needle doesn't go dropping into the yellow or even worse, the red. So that's been holding pressure right there for a while now. So I'm just going to take this off. We're going to take a 5-10 minute break here. I'm going to come back and I'm going to see if this drops down below that 25. So now you just use your manufacturer's specified coolant, or if you want to use a universal coolant of some sort, you can do that. You just need to make sure that it meets the specifications required by the manufacturer. This is going to fill the system using the vacuum that's inside of there. You're going to see this hose right here is going to expand back to its regular size. All right, now that I've got that as full as it's going to go, I'm going to go ahead and put this adapter on here. I've got a nice funnel with a stopper. I'm going to put in some of this coolant. Now this is going to burp out any air that might be still left in the system. The way that you do that is you would start up the vehicle and run it for a little while. As it runs, the coolant's going to heat up to the right temperature where the thermostat's going to open up. Once it opens, more than likely it's going to end up pushing through any air that's inside this system, and it's going to come out the highest point, which of course would be here. As air comes out, coolant's going to make its way in, and it's going to fill up just the way it should. So let's get the engine cover on here. See these little grommets? Those are going to line up with these pitons, okay? Got them all over the top there. Just line it up. There it is. Okay, so we made it inside the vehicle. We're going to start up the vehicle. You're going to put your heat all the way on high. Put on face there, and then go ahead and crank it up. At this point, you can pay attention to the dash, and that's where your temperature gauge is. Obviously, if it starts making its way all the way up into the red, there's going to be an issue. I'd like for it to come up into the middle, maybe a little bit above. That should be about where the thermostat's going to be at about 3/4. It's going to open up. You're going to see it drop back down again. All right, so we ran this for a long period of time. We got all the air out of the cooling system. We're sure of it. Awesome. Next, I'm just going to grab this coolant hose. It's going to be a little warm. I'm going to give it a squeeze, and then I'm going to push this down in there. What that's going to do is it's going to give me a little bit of slack where it's going to draw the coolant down and hopefully spill less. There we are. At this point, you can either take your leftover coolant and put it in your reservoir. If you haven't already replaced the coolant inside there, it's a good idea too. That's already full, so I'm just going to go right in here and I'll recycle it later. Get that adapter off of there. We have our cap. Go ahead and close that up so it's completely tight. Perfect. We'll just double check everything. If you lift anything loose, make sure it's covered. Go ahead and take her for a road test.